What if the reason you're exhausted has nothing to do with how far you've traveled and everything to do with what you've been carrying? Think about that. Not every tired person is overworked. Not every broken person has been defeated. Sometimes the heaviest weight in your life is not your responsibility, not your circumstances, not your obstacles. Sometimes it's the story you've been telling yourself. The story that says you're behind, the story that says you missed your chance, the story that whispers that maybe this is all you have left. And the dangerous thing about that story is that you hear it so often, you stop questioning it. You begin to believe it. You begin to wear it like a second skin. You wake up carrying yesterday's disappointments into today's opportunities. You drag old failures into new beginnings. You stare at closed doors so long that you stop noticing the ones opening right beside you. But what if your greatest need right now is not to push harder? What if your greatest need is to restore yourself? Because there is a difference between quitting and recovering. A warrior rests, a champion resets, a visionary steps back so they can see farther. The world teaches you that stopping is weakness, but wisdom teaches something different. Wisdom teaches that there are seasons when the strongest thing you can do is rebuild your energy, restore your spirit, and reconnect with who you really are. A bow that is always stretched eventually snaps. A mind that never rests eventually loses clarity. A soul that never reconnects with its purpose eventually forgets why it started. Maybe you've been trying to move forward with an empty tank. Maybe you've been demanding strength from a version of yourself that hasn't had a chance to heal. Maybe you've mistaken exhaustion for failure, and that changes everything. Because failure is not running out of energy. Failure is believing that running out of energy means you're finished. You are not finished. You are being called to reset. Look at nature. The strongest trees do not grow every day at the same speed. Rivers do not rush every second of their journey. Even the earth moves through seasons, growth, rest, renewal, expansion. Yet somehow we expect ourselves to be machines, always productive, always motivated, always strong. And when we aren't, we begin attacking ourselves with criticism. We call ourselves lazy. We call ourselves weak. We call ourselves incapable. But imagine speaking to someone you love the way you speak to yourself. Imagine telling a struggling friend that one difficult season means their future is over. You would never do it, because deep down you understand something powerful. A bad chapter does not mean a bad story. A difficult season does not mean a failed life. A setback does not erase potential. The problem is that when pain becomes personal, perspective disappears. You stop seeing reality, you start seeing fear. Fear is a master illusionist. It convinces talented people they're ordinary. It convinces capable people they're powerless. It convinces strong people they're broken. And the longer fear speaks, the quieter purpose becomes. That is why you must restore yourself, not because life is easy, not because challenges disappear, but because purpose requires energy, purpose requires clarity, purpose requires a mind strong enough to remember what fear wants you to forget. You were not born to spend your life doubting your worth. You were not born to shrink every dream until it fits inside your comfort zone. You were not born to become a prisoner of temporary circumstances. There is something inside you that existed before the disappointments, before the criticism, before the failures, before the heartbreak, before the mistakes. And that part of you is still there, waiting. Not dead, not destroyed, waiting for you to stop identifying with your wounds and start reconnecting with your strength. Think about the people who inspire you most, the leaders, the creators, the innovators, the champions. Most people see their victories. Few people understand their recoveries. Every great comeback begins with a reset. Every powerful transformation begins with a decision to stop living from depletion, a decision to stop feeding doubt, a decision to stop rehearsing limitations, because whatever you rehearse becomes stronger. Rehearse fear and fear grows. Rehearse excuses and excuses multiply. Rehearse possibility and your mind begins searching for opportunities. Rehearse belief and your actions start changing. Your life often follows the direction of your dominant thoughts. That is why mindset matters. Not because positive thinking magically changes reality, but because the way you think determines the way you respond to reality. Two people can face the same storm. One sees destruction. The other sees a test. One sees an ending. The other sees preparation. One gives up. The other grows stronger. The storm is the same. The mindset is different. And mindset is not something you find. It is something you build every day. Every decision, every thought, every action, brick by brick, moment by moment. You build the person you become. The question is not whether life will challenge you. It will. The question is what those challenges will reveal. Will they reveal someone who forgot their purpose or someone who remembered it? Because purpose changes everything. Purpose gives suffering meaning. Purpose gives discipline power. Purpose gives sacrifice value. Without purpose, obstacles feel unbearable. With purpose, obstacles become part of the journey. When you know why you are moving, you can survive almost any difficulty. And that is why you must return to your purpose. Not the purpose others assign to you. Not the expectations people projected onto you. Not the identity created by comparison. Your purpose, the reason your heart still refuses to settle, the reason certain dreams keep returning, the reason something inside you keeps whispering that there is more. Listen carefully. That whisper is important because purpose rarely screams. It whispers, fear screams, doubt screams, criticism screams. Purpose whispers, and only those willing to become quiet enough can hear what it has been saying all along. Maybe it has been telling you that your story is bigger than this moment. Maybe it has been reminding you that your potential has not expired. Maybe it has been waiting for the day you stop asking whether you can and start asking what happens when you fully commit. What happens when you stop negotiating with your excuses? What happens when you stop postponing your growth? What happens when you stop looking for permission? Because there comes a moment in every transformation when a person realizes that the life they want will never be created by the habits that keep them stuck. That moment changes everything. That moment creates momentum. That moment creates power. That moment creates a version of you that no longer waits for motivation because discipline has taken its place. And discipline is one of the most misunderstood forces in the world. People think discipline is punishment. It is not. Discipline is self-respect in action. Discipline is keeping promises to yourself. Discipline is remembering your future when your emotions try to distract you. Discipline is showing up when nobody is watching, because your future is not built during moments of excitement. It is built during moments when excitement disappears and commitment remains. And that is where your next breakthrough is waiting. Not in perfect conditions, not in ideal timing, not after every fear disappears, but in the decision to rise again with a restored spirit, a renewed mind, and an unshakable focus on what truly matters. Because the moment you stop seeing yourself as defeated and start seeing yourself as unfinished, something begins to shift. Your posture changes, your thoughts change, your actions change, your standards change. And once your standards change, your entire life begins moving in a different direction. You stop asking whether the road is hard. You start asking whether the destination is worth it. You stop focusing on how long it will take. You start focusing on who you are becoming. You stop measuring yourself by temporary results. You start measuring yourself by daily progress. And that is when you discover a truth most people spend their entire lives missing. The strongest people are not those who never fall. They are the ones who know how to restore themselves, reset their minds, and return to their purpose with even greater conviction than before. Because every challenge carries a hidden question. Every setback carries a hidden invitation. Every difficult season carries a hidden opportunity. And right now, whether you realize it or not, life may be asking you one question that has the power to change everything. What becomes possible when you stop doubting your ability to rise and begin acting as though the person you were meant to become is already waiting on the other side of your next decision, your next discipline, your next courageous step into the unknown where most people turn back. That is the place nobody talks about. The place between who you have been and who you are becoming. The place where old habits are dying, but new habits are not yet strong enough. The place where results have not arrived. The place where progress is invisible. The place where your faith is tested in silence. Because anyone can believe when evidence is obvious. Anyone can stay committed when rewards are immediate. Anyone can stay focused when life is easy. But can you remain faithful to your purpose when nothing around you appears to be changing? Can you keep moving when nobody applauds? Can you trust your growth when there is no proof yet? Those questions separate dreamers from builders. And this is where most people make a tragic mistake. They confuse invisibility with failure. They mistake silence for stagnation. They assume that because they cannot see progress is not happening. But some of the most important transformations in life are invisible. A seed underground looks lifeless, yet beneath the surface, roots are forming. Strength is forming, preparation is forming, the future is forming, and while everyone is looking for visible success, life is busy creating invisible foundations. The question is not whether growth is happening. The question is whether you have the patience to let it happen. Because the strongest foundations are built where nobody can see them. Think about that. Nobody celebrates the roots. Everyone celebrates the tree. Nobody applauds the preparation. Everyone applauds the performance. Nobody notices the years of discipline. Everyone notices the moment of achievement. And if you become addicted to external validation, you will abandon your purpose the moment recognition disappears. That is why your identity must become stronger than people's opinions, because opinions change. Crowds change, circumstances change, results change, but purpose remains. There will be moments when people doubt you, moments when they misunderstand you, moments when they question your direction. And sometimes the most painful voices will come from people you expected to believe in you. That hurts. It hurts because we all want to be understood. We all want support. We all want encouragement. But there comes a moment when maturity demands something greater. A moment when you stop asking who believes in you and start asking whether you believe in yourself enough to continue. Because there is a strange truth about greatness. The path becomes lonelier before it becomes clearer, not because you are losing people, but because you are outgrowing versions of yourself that needed their approval. And growth often feels like loss before it feels like freedom. You lose certainty, you lose comfort, you lose familiar patterns, you lose excuses, you lose the identity that kept you safe. And for a while, it feels uncomfortable. For a while, it feels like something is being taken from you. But what if nothing valuable is being taken? What if something limiting is being removed? What if every challenge is stripping away everything that cannot survive where you are going? Imagine carrying a backpack filled with stones. Every step feels harder. Every hill feels impossible. Then one by one, the stones begin to fall away. At first, it feels strange. The weight has been with you for so long that you confuse it with who you are. And many people do exactly that. They confuse their wounds with their identity. They confuse their failures with their identity. They confuse their fears with their identity. But you are not your fear. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not the worst thing that ever happened to you. You are the consciousness capable of rising above all of it. You are the awareness capable of choosing again. And that realization changes the entire game. Because once you realize you are not your circumstances, you stop waiting for circumstances to change before you change. You stop saying, when things get better, I'll become stronger. Instead, you decide, I will become stronger, and then things will get better. That shift is everything. Victims wait for conditions. Leaders create them. Victims focus on obstacles. Leaders focus on possibilities. Victims ask, why is this happening to me? Leaders ask, what is this trying to teach me? One question creates suffering, the other creates power. And power is not force. Power is not control. Power is not domination. Real power is the ability to govern yourself, to direct your thoughts when fear appears, to control your actions when emotions fluctuate, to stay committed when distractions multiply, to remember your purpose when temptation offers easier roads, because make no mistake, distraction is rarely loud. It rarely arrives looking dangerous. It arrives looking comfortable. It arrives looking harmless. It arrives disguised as procrastination, disguised as entertainment, disguised as waiting for the perfect moment, disguised as one more day, one more week, one more year, and suddenly decades disappear. Not because people lacked talent, not because they lacked opportunity, but because they kept postponing the life they were meant to live. That is why this moment matters. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now. Because every day you delay becoming who you know you can be, a silent cost accumulates. A cost most people never calculate. The cost of unrealized potential, the cost of unexplored courage, the cost of unwritten chapters, the cost of gifts never shared with the world. And perhaps the greatest tragedy is not failure. Perhaps the greatest tragedy is reaching the end of a life and discovering how much more was possible. Discovering there was another level of strength, another level of wisdom, another level of impact, another level of purpose, and realizing it remained untouched because fear convinced you to settle. But something inside you refuses to settle. That is why you're still listening. That is why part of you keeps searching, because deep down, you sense there is a version of yourself you have not met yet, a version shaped by greater discipline, greater courage, greater faith, greater focus. A version of you that does not run from adversity, but uses it. A version that no longer sees obstacles as interruptions to the journey, but as the very path itself. And the fascinating thing is that this future version of you is not waiting to be created. It is waiting to be revealed, layer by layer, decision by decision, challenge by challenge. As every limitation falls away, every excuse loses power, and every distraction fades into the background, you begin to notice something extraordinary. The thing you were searching for was never somewhere out there. It was being built within you all along, in every difficult choice, in every disciplined action, in every moment. You kept going when stopping felt easier. And when that realization truly sinks in, when you understand that your greatest battle has never been against circumstances, people, luck, or timing, but against the smaller version of yourself that keeps trying to convince you to play safe. You begin standing at the edge of a discovery so powerful that it changes the way you see every challenge, every setback, every fear, because suddenly you start to recognize that hidden inside the struggle you've been trying so hard to escape, the very thing that can awaken the greatness you have been searching for. Not because struggle is magical, not because pain is desirable, but because struggle forces a question comfort never asks. Who are you when everything easy is removed? Who are you when excuses no longer work? Who are you when the only thing left between you and your future is the decision to keep moving? That is where character is born. That is where resilience is forged. That is where ordinary people become extraordinary. And one day, sooner than you think, you will look back at the season that nearly broke you. The season of uncertainty, the season of exhaustion, the season of setbacks, the season when you questioned yourself. And you will realize something astonishing. It was not the season that destroyed you. It was the season that introduced you to yourself. You will realize that every challenge carried a lesson. Every disappointment carried direction. Every obstacle carried preparation. And every moment you refused to quit was quietly building the person capable of carrying the future you once prayed for. So stop measuring your life by where you are today. Massage it by the direction you are moving. Stop asking whether the road is difficult. Ask whether the dream is worthy of your commitment. Stop focusing on how many times you have fallen. Focus on how many times you have risen. Because your story was never meant to be defined by your worst day. Your story was meant to be defined by your decision to rise after it. Restore yourself, reset your mindset, reconnect with your purpose. Then move forward with everything you have. Not half-heartedly, Not cautiously, not someday. Now, bring your full strength, bring your full focus, bring your full belief. Because the world does not need a smaller version of who you could be. Your family does not need a smaller version of who you could be. Your future does not need a smaller version of who you could be. And deep down, you know it. You have carried doubt long enough. You have carried fear long enough. You've carried hesitation long enough. This is the moment to let it go. This is the moment to remember who you are. This is the moment to step forward with the courage, discipline, and purpose that have been waiting inside you all along. And when life tests you again, and it will, remember this. You are not here to stop. You are not here to surrender. You are not here to shrink from your calling. You are here to rise again and again and again until your actions become stronger than your fears, until your purpose becomes louder than your excuses, until the person staring back at you in the mirror becomes living proof that setbacks can be transformed into strength, pain can be transformed into power, and struggle can be transformed into destiny. Never forget, the people who change their lives are not the ones who never get tired. They are the ones who restore themselves, reset their minds, remember their purpose, and keep moving long after everyone else decides to stop.